Hello, this is a quick video on how to do the metadata for the new Validator tool. Now, for the example this time, we'll be using an environment and prop. So the first thing we can do is we're going to map in the product that we're going to be testing or doing the metadata for. In this case, we're using a Daz original. It's already released. I'm just using it. It's a small product and it'll be a quick example for how to do metadata. So here I would actually recommend to move this to the top, because when you save out metadata, it'll save it out to the very topmost folder. So you can either have a folder that's blank that you can dump everything into so you don't have to go sorting through stuff to find metadata, or you can just move the folder that you're working on up to the top. In order to do that, you can just go to Content Directory Manager, click on Daz Studio Formats, find the one you want, and then just move to the top. Okay. All right, good. So now you'll see it's there. We're going to open it up. And for right now, since we're doing the metadata part, we're going to load in all of the items that have geometry. So in this case, it's just one that loads in multiple things. Say you had 20 props, you'd load in all 20 props at one time. Okay, and then we have now added some special metadata scripts to the PA support package. What you will do is you're going to want to start this metadata steps one, and that'll create a separate little pane called metadata steps. It might pop up over here, and then you can just drag it to whichever section you want it at. You can use all these individually. This is just a shell that makes it a little bit easier to use. That's all. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to want to use unparent. They're in order of kind of how you should use them. So unparent everything does exactly what it says. It just unparents all the items. As you can see, it's happened over here. Next, remove non-geometry. This will remove all the items that do not have any geometry, cameras, the nodes, anything like that. And so you'll see it removed it over here. If you have a lot of instances, because instances are included in that, that can take a long time to delete those. Just letting you know. Alright, so list geometry source. This is also in our other scripts. They're in the PA support package. What this does is this tells you where it's loading the geometry from. It should look like this, where it says data and then whatever the path is. If it says hashtag or anything else, that means it's not pulling the geometry from the data folder, and it's incorrect and will need to be fixed before the product is submitted. Remove duplicate geometries. Say you had a wall 1 and you had 4 of them in the scene, right? Then what you do is you would hit remove duplicate geometries, and it would remove all of them but one of them. This is why naming is so important when you're making your products and how they load into the scene, so that you're not having duplicated items in there. Okay, and get list of missing compatibility base is basically if something doesn't have a scene ID, it'll show up there. Good case use example of this is, say you're doing an add-on for a product that already has metadata and it's already got some, like a car, and you're adding some hubcaps. Then when you load in your new hubcaps, they won't have a compatibility base, but all the rest of the car stuff will. So you run this, the hubcaps will show up that these don't have scene IDs. So what you'll need to do is come over here and remove all the other car stuff except for the hubcaps. You'll have to do that manually. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to select these and then hit assign compatibility bases. And then down here in this field, this needs to be the exact name that it's going to be on the pass page. That's important. And then hit accept. And what that does is this will add scene IDs to these. There's two ways to check this. You can go edit object, and then scene identification, and you'll see it there, feature pathway floor. Or the faster way, especially if you've got a lot of props, is to check this filter by context box in the smart content, and then you'll see where it says floor. You can just go down the list, some mid arches, and make sure they match. Okay. All right. So we've assigned the scene IDs, and now we're going to set the compatibility base inside and do the metadata. All right. So come down to Validator. You're going to need to select the folder you're working with, and you're going to run scan. All right. If there's any problems, they'll list them here, and then those need to be fixed before you submit to. And we're going to click on the metadata tab. This is a new thing. You'll see how there's fields are black, right? It's because we haven't created a product yet. So I would recommend detaching this. It opens it up, and it's a lot easier to see. All this information can be, for generic how to access a validator and generic metadata information can be found in the PA support package under the readmes, metadata readmes, and it's the PA support package metadata information. And then if you want specific information on using those scripts, there is a separate PDF on that called PA support package using metadata scripts. So anyways, now we're going to create product and leave this as local user for now. If you select Daz 3D, you would have to have the SKU, but you're not going to have that yet. Product name, this has to be the exact name of the product. And then the your authorship information. And then leave the SKU empty because you don't have it yet. And hit accept. And you'll see how it changed these two to red. And this also lists, this would populate this table when you hit scan, with all the files in the product, right? All right, so now then, you can hit suggest, but it will not always be accurate. So you will have to go through and make changes. In this case, this is the item that loads all the props. So in this case, it is a set, because it's like a movie set where you can just drop a character in and then it's ready to go. However, these materials are incorrect. You'll see here under the asset type, it's a preset hierarchical material, but the content type was set as preset materials MDL, which is the IRA. So we're going to need to fix that. So we'll go to here, right click and set content type with that selected, and we'll go up and select preset materials hierarchical MDL. MDL is for IRA, RSL is for 3D Light, Fila is for Filatune, MC6 is for Poser. And then you hit accept. And you'll see how it updated it. Okay, so now the categories. The categories are not correct for either one of these. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit categories and make sure you uncheck that one, because this is an environment, architecture, interior. If you're ever in doubt of what something is, you can look at another product that's similar to it, or you can look in the base starter essentials, or you can contact your tester and ask. And if you're doing this before you've been assigned a tester, then do the best you can. If we need to make changes, we'll make changes. Okay, so that's good. You can hit accept. Do not add your own custom categories in the metadata. Daz Studio ships with the approved categories for doing metadata. The only exception to this is when doing characters, there are custom categories for characters. when it comes to the materials and stuff. And there is a PDF next to the other metadata PDFs called PA Support Package Character Metadata Categories that has the approved categories for doing characters. Okay, so now we're going to fix this one. Edit categories. This is materials area architecture because it's big building. If it was a prop, it'd be materials area prop or whatever. All right. So those are now set. They should always start with default. They shouldn't start with anything else. Okay, so compatibility based. Earlier we had assigned it scene IDs, so now we're going to actually set the compatibility base for this preset. So what we're going to do is right click. This is the one that loads in the geometry, so that's the one you do it on. You're going to set compatibility base, and we're going to go down, find the future pathway. And this, since this loads multiple things, you can only select one thing to say, I am this. That's what compatibility base is. I would select the floor or whichever thing that it loads. Everything loads on. In this case, everything loads on top of the floor. Don't worry about the scene ID yet. After we commit the metadata, this will populate. This is a material. It does not get a compatibility base. It will, however, get a compatibility saying I work with this, right? So the set will not get a compatibility because it doesn't apply to anything. It just loads in. However, the material applies to that, to the props, and that's a hierarchical, so it applies to all of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit, add compatibilities, and then we're going to find it, and then select all the things that it material would apply. In this case, it's all of them, but just in case it was like one, or floor and wall 2, then you could hold the control down and select just those 2, or if it's all of them, you can just drag the mouse, or you can select the top one, hold shift, and select the bottom. All right. Okay, so now we're going to commit. And this will tell you all the things it's going to commit to the local database. And then you're going to hit accept. This button right here is the save. Say you're doing a large metadata and you might have to interrupt or whatever. If you hit save, it'll save out an XML file that will save the metadata. Do not include this in the product. Here, I'll show you real quick. So we're going to save. It's telling you where it's going to save it to, right? You're going to export the metadata XML. It is not the metadata. Let me come up here. And I'll pull this over. So this is what it will look like. That's just like saving a game or whatever. It's so that if you have to reset the metadata, then you're not going to lose all your work. But do not ship that with the metadata. Okay. All right, so we've committed the metadata. So if we come back up here to Content Library, go down to Products, and we're not seeing it there. So every once in a while this will happen. So you're going to have to close Studio and close this. Wait for Studio to reopen. And you'll see it's there. So now that we have that selected, we're going to right click on the Content Library tab, closed it. We're going to right click and go Content DB Editor. You have to make sure you have that selected, right? You're going to change this to Daz 3D. And here you're going to, this is a good example. So you see here we only have one item, right? We actually have multiple items that have scene IDs, but that preset only loads in one, and we can only select, set its compatibility base as one. So what we're going to have to do is, oh, that's the material. We're going to have to load them back in. Go to the scripts again. All right. So now we have to make sure these are all selected because they all have scene IDs. But if we don't have those selected when we go to save out the metadata, we'll lose all those scene IDs for the ones that aren't declared. So the mid archers, the wall 1 and wall 2. So now we'll go Content TV Editor, and you'll see. This is really, really important, especially if you have, like in this case, is a prime example of having one preset that loads on multiple things, but only one gets declared. So this is why you make sure you have them selected when you get to this stage. Select Daz 3D. We're going to add a directory from recursive. And then select the folder, and it'll populate it with all the files. You're going to add the artist information here. And then you don't have the SKU, you can just leave it blank. And then you hit accept. And it'll tell you where it's saving the metadata to. And since you've put this folder all the way at the top, it saved it into the folder that you're working in. Runtime support. Now, you can add in the metadata image if you want. Usually be your main promo image. You can just put it in there. It needs to be named the same as the other two things, so you can just copy the name if you want. And the image size is 114 by 148. I have a special tool that I use called Image Resizer for Windows. Works pretty well. And that would be it. That would be how you do metadata. And you would zip this up and then you submit that with the Validator report to your patch page. Okay, have a good day.